Now, I chose the name there, Boom Operator and So Much More. I chose that for a reason. Back in 1979, I was given that title, I guess, in the credits on a film by Hal Ashby called Being There. And today, still, that film, I believe, resonates with me, probably as one of the best films I think I've ever done, for a lot of reasons. We were allowed to do sound in a way that I think was just optimum. It was a wonderful experience. We had a director that came right out of post-production, as an editor. He actually, in a lot of ways, was a mentor, I guess, to both Jeff and I. A great experience. But as we know, times are changing. And change is inevitable, obviously. And some change is obviously very good. Some things have changed, obviously, through technological reasons. Some has been economic reasons. A lot of changes today are just idiotic reasons. I mean, the fact that we're working with people that don't have a breadth of experience. They don't have the kind of experience that it seems like when we first came up, or when I first came up in this business, it seems like there was much more. And so a lot of people are sort of learning on the fly, making up their own rules, doing things in ways that certainly sound that are being dictated by other people other than you, the professional. So one of the reasons we wanted to do this lecture or seminar was to, one thing that's important to me is to sort of keep those standards up, to make sure that no matter what you are working on, no matter how awful it seems at the time, you'll probably go on to something better, you'll probably do something better, and you don't want to lose your skills, you don't want to lose all of the things that you've learned and make for a really good sound. The first thing we want to do, I think, is just discuss for a moment or go through what is good sound. What is good production sound? Well, to me, sound is like a third dimension for picture. It gives it scope. It gives it depth, dimension. Without it, picture can be rather dull. So it's up to us, as a sound department, to impart to the picture the proper sound. And good sound versus mediocre sound. And good sound basically will always have a focus on the camera perspective, what the camera sees, because that's actually what we are trying to enhance. And we, of course, want to record good, clean, intelligible dialogue. That's probably the first and foremost thing, because we do have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to the audience that they hear the movie in its totality. We need to focus on what is actually appropriate sound for the picture. And our job is to record voice and the background. That is the balance that we are always working with. And it's a very delicate balance. And if it's done right, then we will probably have done a good job of doing appropriate sound. You have to understand there's only 3 people on a set that really have the knowledge to record sound properly. And that's the 3-man sound crew. And we also are the only people who, for the most part, even consider sound very much. Most people, just think it happens, I think. So it's up to us to use that knowledge that we have, because knowledge can be power. But if we don't use the knowledge, it becomes useless. One of the things that is so important is taking the responsibility for the soundtrack. Understanding that with your knowledge, with your expertise, you have the right to speak up in terms of what's right for the sound. So many times today it appears that cameramen, ADs, many other people have an opinion about how we should do sound, right? Somebody told me a story the other day about they were on a set and the AD said, we want you to wire everybody right away because we don't want to wait for you in case you have to wire them. Well, apparently they went ahead and did this for a while, and I guess it finally changed. But my recommendation to him was, well, that shouldn't fly. You should just absolutely state the point that you're the people that understand sound, and they will never wait for you, and you'll have plenty of time. You'll let them know plenty of time in advance whether or not you need to put a wire on them or not. But for the most part, you'll make those decisions. And I think a lot of people today seem to be afraid to step up and say that. They seem to be intimidated. And we already have enough problems, obviously, with all the multi-cameras and styles of shooting that are out there, that we become, on some films, we absolutely do become, I guess you say, capturers of sound. We basically are there just to lay down some tracks that somebody later on can hopefully do something with, and hopefully come out with a decent soundtrack. But there are a lot of films, and the other thing I do want to stress today, because as I speak about these things, it really is oriented towards film. And there's a lot of projects out there that I know this doesn't, in some ways, relate to, because you don't seem to have the opportunity to even voice an opinion. On films, you still have that right, and you should take that responsibility. And I guess my feeling about that, however, is that even on any project, you have that right and you have that responsibility. So it just goes to the amount that we want to step up and be guardians of the soundtrack, and how far we want to push ourselves out there for the possibility of not getting the next job. On the last film I did, the one thing the director came up to me at the end of the job, shook my head and said, thank you very much. He says, I really appreciate your desire for perfection and the way you push to get, sound the way it should be. That's actually, a very big compliment after, after struggling sometimes, with two cameras, trying to figure out whether or not we should shoot two or not shoot two. There was not that large a budget, so obviously it's like, well, we got to do it. Well, we don't really have to do it all the time, because, you shoot the master once or twice, which you're going to use for, 20 seconds in the film maybe, and you've got it. And a lot of times I think they just don't understand that. They just don't quite get it. And sometimes it takes some of us to prod them a little and, make a suggestion here or there. So again, our primary focus is to record clear, intelligible dialogue. On a wide shot, we may use an open mic. We may use a wireless microphone. We may use a plant. These may be all in combination. But what we're doing is we're actually recording the sound that's appropriate for that picture. It's not always that you're going to be able to use an open mic to do everything. But there are ways to use wireless microphones in combination with an open mic and really achieve what we're trying to achieve. Now, minimal and consistent background sound. Now, you'll probably see this a lot the rest of the day, because background sound in general is probably the biggest issue that we as sound men deal with. If there weren't background sounds, recording all this dialogue would be a pretty easy job, But it's not. Everything in every environment we shoot in contains background sounds, whether it's a room tone, ambience, all the way up to a freeway, noisy construction site, whatever it is. And how we manage those, how we deal with those background sounds, keeping them minimal and consistent, will determine what kind of job we've done. Because we all know we live in a very, very noisy world. Sound is messy. it reflects, it bounces, it does things that is totally mysterious to most of us. And sound is something you can't see. You can't see it at all. Most people perceive it totally different. So it's very critical that we listen very carefully in terms of recording appropriate sound, is that fine balance between the dialogue and the background sounds. And there's so many things that can be done to actually affect this. The last thing on this is camera perspective. Certainly in film, and I think in almost any project that you do, you should always be aware of camera perspective when you're doing sound. Always understand that what we do is enhancing that picture. And whatever we can do on the set, in production, to enhance that, to make that real, is going to be so much more helpful to post-production. Now, there are a lot of techniques that post-production can use nowadays to try and build in, some perspective. But almost every editor you will talk to will tell you the same thing, that it's never as good as when it's done on the set. So you should always fight to make sure you can record that kind of sound, because it's extremely important for the picture. To really and truly become a really good boom operator, you really have to understand post-production sound. You have to understand what it is that happens to our tracks once they leave the set and go into post-production. We only do one portion of it. We do the dialogue, backgrounds, whatever, on production. After it goes into post-production, these tracks are cut, they're EQ'd, they're overlapped, added to, enhanced, and finally they get mixed into the final tapestry of the final mix. But it's important to know what it is that they require, what it is that they would prefer in post-production.